So here, what I'd encourage you to do is to log into a computer and check your badges if you'd like, because it should be up to date through the end of yesterday. So if you want to see where you stand, go to either the Oswego website and then click on Blackboard, or go to oswego.open.suny.edu. Or I think it's www.oswego.edu/bb will take you there too. So yes, it should be plugged in. They take forever to boot, so we're just going to summarize the badge program a little bit, see what's in it.
And then we'll show you exactly how to get them.
And exactly, or at least to the extent to which we can, because our view is a little bit different because we don't get badges for the most part because we're administrators of the group. So basically,
no, they're for you.
They're for you.
Professional development students.
You can create them for any classes for students in exactly the same way. In fact, if you'd like, we can show you how they're set up. So in terms of our badges, we're using them for professional development for a number of reasons. One reason is that whenever we do an accreditation review for middle states or for anything else, people always ask, what's the outcome of the workshops? And our response is, well, we know these people are doing things, but we don't know what other people have done. So one of the things we want to do is to put together something where people who implement things they learned in workshops or from guest speakers and other things actually have an opportunity to share that with everyone. So we'd like to encourage a culture of a bit more sharing, which is one of the reasons why we did this. We also want to recognize that people attend workshops and so forth. So the way this works
is like when you do annual reviews or like you're trying to demonstrate what professional development you've done, it's a way that all that information is collected in one place. So it's easy to share what you've done with this sort of thing on campus.
Our first attempt, we wanted to have people generate a professional development transcript, which people could use where they could print it up showing what workshops they attended. And we ran into all sorts of problems with that. One is we had a grad student working on it, and then CTS wouldn't allow them to set up and connect to the LDAP server after they worked on it for several months at the suggestion of our CTO. This was a while back, way before Sean. And then we looked at some other software that would do it. And we had a committee that met for 2 years to look at these types of things. And eventually it fell through. So instead we're using Blackboard and badges. And the way it works is we have 5 categories. And the 5 categories are listed on the CELT website. If you just go to oswego.edu/CELT and click badges, it'll take you to this page. And the 5 categories are accessibility, universal design. We may be changing the name, but the category will change. Evidence-based instruction, student writing, online learning, and mobile technology, and also presenter badges. You get, for any of the workshop categories as attendees, you get a silver badge if you attend 5 workshops from the list. You get a gold badge if you attend 10 from the list. And you get a platinum badge if you have a gold badge. And then you, I'm on the wrong page. But if you, if you go down, so if you have 10 workshops in a category, you get gold. And then the platinum badge, we ask that people, we have a form where people write up what they did. They'll provide an assessment of how it worked and describe how they assess the outcome. They describe why they did this and how it worked. And this will be shared somehow with everyone else. We don't have anyone who's done this yet. It hasn't been around that long. And what we're hoping is that, and then we're asking people to participate in the podcast. This was one of the impetus, one of the reasons why we put the podcast series together, and then we started doing some others to get it underway. But we're hoping that much of this will be from people who implement something that came out of one of these categories.
So the silver and gold are really about kind of participation and attending, and then the platinum really, you have to take action for that to action.
So you did 4 last semester, you did 4 more.
It's cumulative. And partly it's cumulative because we have no way really of telling when you did these because of the way it's set up.
The only ones that are not, so there's presenter badges and they're a little bit different. Right. So those
Yes,
are
those
on
are
an
annual.
annual basis, and there is also a bronze category, and that is for doing one presentation, and the platinum category, the platinum badges in that category require 15.
Through the
Throughout
year, which includes winter breakout, spring breakout, and during the fall and spring semesters. So the accessibility universal design is more broadly focused on creating an inclusive and safe diversity and inclusion are part of this, because in general, we want our classes to be welcoming and for all students, regardless of what limitations they have or what their culture, ethnic backgrounds, etc. So it's a very broadly defined thing. I think we've been talking about perhaps changing the name to inclusive inclusion or something similar. And we have quite a few workshops on each, so there's now enough workshops in any to get a gold badge or a platinum badge. When we try to offer enough, at least to get to the silver badge in every spring and winter workshop, set of workshops. And most of the time, we'll have enough in many of them to get to the to a gold badge, even in a single set.
You're really motivated in a year you want to get one done.
So that's the broad category. Now, the way in which you check your badges is you log into Blackboard, choose Community Group at the top, click on CELT, and then that takes you to the CELT Blackboard group, which we don't have a lot in, basically, but one thing we do have is this thing called badges. And if you click on it, what will happen is you'll see this. Here I get to see all of them because we created them, but you will see only the ones that are active for you. So for each badge category, you will see a set of badges that describes, you will see any badges that you've earned as of this morning, basically, or as of the end of the day yesterday. So I have no new ones, but so you have to log in with your account and just go to the CELT community group. Okay, under my groups too, and just click on badges, and you should see any badges that you received. So you've got some presenter badges that you've got some presenter badges, and you've got.
Make sure you're looking, there's all achievements. No, see, there's, look under earned achievements, though. There's multiple tabs there.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so you don't have the other.
So when you click on all achievements, just like this, you can see all of them. When you hit the earned achievements, you can see the ones that you've actually earned, and then here's the ones that you haven't earned yet.
Okay. Yeah, see, when we check it, it won't show up because we don't get any of those.
Unearned means that those are ones that are available.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you have to click on the earned achievements to see if that changed actually.
Yeah.
It must have been with the last Blackboard update. But now, if you want to see your status, you can log into the gradebook. Now, I can't really do that. Well, I can do it, but it will show it for everybody. But, well, actually, this is my grades. If you check on the gradebook, yeah, actually, if you click on this, you'll see something like this. The first few categories are the total number of badges that you've received in each category. So the accessibility category, I have 0 of 19. For the evidence-based instructional method, we have 32 possible workshops. I have 0 of those. I have 0 writing out of 11, 0 online learning.
Slacker.
I know. But again, because we're the administrator of the groups, we don't show up in the gradebook. But you should be able to see your progress. So in there, you can tell how close you're getting to any given category. So up at the top, you have one in the,
Yeah, so you get one.
you have one in the mobile technology one. But I guess it works out, went to probably didn't fit one of the categories. I know you're not, so I'm surprised.
Yeah, so these are, these don't count down.
And down below are the individual workshops. Yeah. So the first are the categories with the totals, and then after that it will have the specific one.
This is which one I did.
Well, it won't there, but if you scroll down, you'll see the one.
And
So-
then teams are all aware of it.
So you went to Google Hangouts, which is one of the mobile technology ones. Yeah, and if you click on the badge, it will give you a description of, you know.
So my
more.
recent ones aren't recorded in here, although I did about, because we put a few last semester.
Well, it depends whether or not they're in the categories that we have badges for.
And the way you find that is on the CELT webpage here, where under the badges, it will show what the workshops are. So these are the ones under inclusion,
Even though
we'll
there's
rename it.
workshops out there, they're not all.
Not all of them are part.
They're not all badges. So there's a lot of them that are like
How-to
software
things or
sort of
something.
things, and those are not the way that we have some of the badges in mind. It's not saying they're not valuable, they're just not part of it.
Yeah.
Like the starfish one, that's right.
Right, that one. We're mostly trying to, we were focusing on these things because those are the things we
advisement
have.
badge is something that we have talked about.
And that we can do and perhaps go back retroactively. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
We started off with just 2 or 3 categories and we're going to expand, and advisement is one. The problem is we didn't have enough workshops in advisement to be able to generate a badge.
Yeah,
So
there's
we,
only like 3 of them.
because we had Starfish and then we had the advisement boot camp, and a couple of times they had advisement boot camp basic and intermediate, but with only 3 workshops we couldn't get to 5 or 10. So some of those we had to build up some workshops to get to.
But you know that we're starting to do more things.
So
on
what's all
mentoring
this,
and
like the
things.
Zoom training, what was that considered?
Zoom should have been under mobile technology, I think. Yeah, you did, but it's there. But we have our grad student do this, so we'll have to check on that and make sure that got flagged.
So you go back to the sign-in sheet.
So we'll go back. So, well, we had 2 things. We have a spreadsheet that keeps track of everybody. Unfortunately, it doesn't all automate. So here's what we have to do. And from your perspective, if you want to do this in class, what you would have to do is go into Blackboard. And in Blackboard, it's under, well, the way it's set up here, let me just show you how we created this. We created a gradebook, basically, where we have zeros for everyone who hasn't attended and a 1 if they did. And then we just created the columns that are the sum of all the ones in the category. So, you know, if you look at the definition of, say, the evidence-based technology one here, the column is just equal to the sum of, it's just a category of all the workshops there. So it just automatically adds up all the ones. And then the way the badges are actually created, since there's some interest in doing it for a class, you can do this in any of your classes. All you have to do is it's under achievements, which is a, it should be, I thought it was under.
Is it under, it might be under organizational tools, then achievements?
That's what I thought.
No, like you don't have organizational tools open.
Okay, I thought I did. Oh, right there. It's under this, and it's under achievements. So the way you create this is, let's create one that we're not actually going to use. We'll get rid of it. So you would click on Create an Achievement, and eventually Blackboard will respond. It's tough because there's all these students logging into Blackboard today. Or not. But you can see, by the way, how many people have received them. So we get to see that. We've only got 1 person with a mobile technology badge, but we've got a lot of people with the evidence-based one, partly because the reading groups kind of towards that. Or up to 5 from a reading group. So eventually Blackboard should respond. Oh, I didn't click one. That was my fault. Okay, so let's say we want to do it based on, you could have a course completion, or let's say you want to do it on a milestone or custom. In practice, they're not much different, but let's just do it with milestone. And we will call this, so here you browse where you want to put it. We put it in the badge folder where people can see them. So, well, we won't actually put it there because that might just confuse people. But you get to choose a file folder where you want that to go. So I guess I do have to do it there, and we'll get rid of it later. Well, I can cancel before we do it. That's a good point. So here you can still toggle. I guess you can't. Okay. So the next thing you do, once you decide where it's going to show up, and it would be in a folder you created in the class, you define the trigger for it. Oh, you have to put a name. So we'll call this junk. So that way we'll know to get rid of it, except we'll spell that correctly. And now that we've created a name for the badge, we'll define a trigger. And the trigger here, you can define a rule. So we could call this the junk rule. In the other cases, we called it silver badge or accessibility silver or whatever. and then you choose when it's displayed. By default, it'll be displayed immediately. Now, you could make it specific to all people. In this case, we would choose, we wouldn't restrict it to any group, so we don't need to do that. And then what we do is we just create a grade center column. And in this case, we created columns that were the sum of the totals for each of the categories. And each gradebook column is one of the workshops that map into that. So let's say we want to do this based on, well, we can do this for presentations. We don't have one yet for 2017-18. Those we normally do at the end of the year. But let's say we want to do something here on accessibility. Oh, they're in alphabetical order here rather than, so you would create a column which is the sum. Here, let's say we want to do a new one based on evidence-based instructional methods. And then you just choose, since we're doing a total there, we'd choose a column. Let's make this greater than or equal to, let's make this 50. And then,
that would mean if everything's worth 1 point, they have to do 50 of them.
yeah, so that way it's not going to be triggered for anybody, I don't think, because we don't have 50 columns there. And then you could require that someone review certain items to complete the achievement. It could be a document or something. We're not going to do that. So we're next going to select the award, and the awards are just where you define it. And these were the ones that come by default. I was perfectly happy with going with these. So for some reason a graphic designer wasn't, but you could also upload your own images, which is what in fact we use. Rebecca created images, and then you can choose to publish that to Mozilla Backpack so it becomes part of the open badge format, and in principle is portable so that you could create an account on the Mozilla Backpack and access them anywhere if you left Oswego, etc.
Where does that say the funny face? Where does it show up in Blackboard?
So what would happen is that would show up right in the badge folder if you had 50 or more workshops in that category, which no one will. And you'll see these are the achievements we have defined already, and these badges look a little nicer, I guess, than the smiley face. But now we have the junk smiley face down there based on this milestone of having 50 or more. Now, you notice I didn't define it. Here, there's a description of it so that when you click the badge, that description will pop up. You could then print that as a PDF, put it in with your promotions folder or your annual reviews and so forth, just to show what you've done and so on. And that's a badging system. So
if you wanted to gamify your class, you can certainly set it up that way that you would need to earn a couple of badges, and there's different ways of earning badges.
Right, or like you have the course completion.
it could be based on the completion of the course, and then they get the badge. You could also define certificates. You could have a little certificate that's printed for them, you know, but the achievements include both badges and certificates. And it could be based on grades, it could be based on a percent score, it could be based on totals.
Based on quizzes and stuff.
It could be based on that. It could be manually generated where you manually do it, but we set it up to automate it as much as we can. And our actual workflow is we get these attendance lists, they go into a spreadsheet, and then we take all the names in that column and manually put it in a Blackboard gradebook.
So if there are many classes using badging, they would have this folder full of badges from
well, it would be specific. No, it would be specific to the course. So students would have to print it and save it themselves unless they have it stored in Mozilla Backpack.
What do they call it?
Mozilla Open Backpack, right? Which is kind of in a state of status. It was done by the people who do Firefox. The Open Mozilla Pack were involved in the development of open badges. Development on that project stopped about 3 or 4 years ago, but I know there's been talk about reviving it. The standard is still there and the directory is still there, but it's not being actively developed right now.
Which is just basically a micro-credentialing that's available to like move with you.
So, but it's not a bad way of, you know, if you want to gamify your class using badges to demonstrate competency on a particular thing, that you could have a number of activities where if they complete one with a satisfactory grade, and you can set the grade in the criteria, it will automatically generate the badge demonstrating that.
I've done that before where like it's a class that goes, not using Blackboard, but I've used another system where let's say there's maybe 10 topics, and I ask them, you know, you need to earn 5 badges, and there's different ways to earn those badges. And then, you know, if you earn those badges, then you get 100 particular category or something.
Because you started out initially, we haven't gotten to it, like the co-curricular transcript. And micro-credentialing has been a topic with SUNY. So.
And this is a topic that SUNY is really actively investigating. There was a micro-credentials workshop in Saratoga Springs that Jill Pippin was the organizer for that. And it was for the group that I chair for SUNY as a whole. And we're doing a podcast with all the organizers of that at 4 o'clock today, which will probably be released either next Wednesday or the week after, probably in 2 weeks, because we're running behind on it, because we generate transcripts of those, and that's a long process. But in the worst case, it'll be released in 2 weeks, and if things go remarkably well, we'll have it next Wednesday, but it's the start of the semester. So, but a lot of SUNY schools have done it. Stony Brook has a badging program that they've been using for about 3 or 4 years. The University of Buffalo just hired someone in charge of micro-credentials for the institution. And her job is to oversee the use of micro-credentials. Some campuses are using stackable micro-credentials where you get credit for a course or for a specific requirement if you've satisfied the micro-credential in at least one course. They're used a lot where the micro-credentials for students can be displayed on a transcript in some form, and most of the campuses that are doing that are using Credly or another system where students can post them on the LinkedIn profile, and there's some employment advantages of showing that you have skills in using Excel or doing specific technical skills that may not be obvious based on the courses that they took. So. But we're just doing it to try to encourage people to go to workshops, and also to try to get a feedback loop where people will actually implement things, report back on it, and share how it worked. And we want to have that in a format where other people can hear about it and see how it's going and so on.
I know to keep track of what you've been doing.
Yeah, if it's in those categories.
Yep.
Right, and
like until you devise another.
Advisement is one that we have talked about.
Like advising and mentoring might be a combo category, which would allow for more.
And we also talked about classroom management and other things, but again, we just don't have enough workshops to fill it out.
We have a lot of workshops. It's just how they fit. Yep. Where are they brought in?
It's just getting 5 in the category that's a little tough for some of them.
I have to go back to see where my last spring one, or when are we, last fall, or even previous.
Yeah, if you go in, you can kind of see where you have the most. So you might see like, oh, I've got 4 in this one category. Maybe I should go to a 5th.
And let us know, and we can go back, because we have records going back like 7 years now of every workshop.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if they're showing. That's my thing. I don't know if they're showing.
Our badges only started in
2015 we went back to, but we really started it in 2016. But we did have data from 2000.
Does it tell you what you did? So.
Well, the grade book does. So the grade book, but you only have the one on mobile technology, I think, for Hangouts. Oh, I know why.
This is your area or something.
Well, yeah, but if you click on the earned one, you don't have any on the earned ones yet, because the only one I know why it's missing. The reason why Zoom is missing is because that's the same. We had a category which was Google Hangouts, Collaborate, or Zoom. So so the category is basically to be able to do online office hours using some type of voice over IP. And so it was the same. That's one entry, because Zoom and Google Hangouts are very similar. They do the same thing. So that's why. So actually it was just because the 2 things you had fit into that category. But if you see things on that list of workshops that's not there, let us know and we can go back and find that, because we do have records on all the workshops attended by each person, you know, at least for 6 or 7 years.
Anything else?
Thank
you.
Thanks.
Hope you get some badges by the end of the year.
So are you new in technology?
I am, yeah.
What courses do you do?
I do metals and